Hello, everybody. I'm Jen, and I'm here today with Rupert Sheldrake. And we're here in your North London home in a gorgeous library. And there's just so much wisdom in this room. And I know you personally are the global thought leader on morphic fields, and I've written your recent book, The Science Delusion, and which is a great read, by the way. So why we're here today is to talk about why fields matter, and I would love to know more from your perspective on, to you, why do fields matter?
If we're looking at the world holistically, then we see it's made up of levels of organization, cells, in tissues, in organs, in organizations, in organisms, in societies, in ecosystems, in Gaia, in the solar system, in the galaxy. And right down, in molecules there are atoms, in atoms there are subatomic particles, and so on. At every level of organization, the whole's more than the sum of the parts. And all holistic philosophies see that. But the question is, what is this elusive wholeness? My own hypothesis is that it's due to morphic fields. The word morphic means form or shape, that shape or organize the system. If you break it up, then the field simply disappears. It's like if you demolish a building, all the material is still there, the bricks, the mortar, the rubble, the dust. But the plan of the building simply disappears. It's not reducible to its chemical components. And the same is true of everything, is true of societies too. If you atomize a society into individuals, then you've lost that whole social structure. Um, so fields are a way of thinking about these holistic properties. Some people prefer to call them systems and talk about systems properties, but I think fields are better because fields are less abstract. Fields exist in nature in ways that we're very aware of. I mean, the gravitational field is holding us down right now, otherwise we'd be floating around. The magnetic field around a magnet is a visible structure. If you have iron filings, fields were first defined by Michael Faraday in the 1840s as regions of influence. A field is a region of influence. So the magnetic field is a region of influence around the magnet. The field of a liver or a kidney is a region of influence within and around the liver or kidney. The the field of a society or social organism is a region of influence that includes all the members of that society.
Great, thank you. And what would you say are the qualities of a strong field or a
Well,
healthy field?
fields, according to my own hypothesis, are shaped by what's gone before. In other words, they have a kind of built-in memory through morphic resonance, and they're expressed through habits. So a strong field is a strongly habitual field. It's one that just happens uh, rather easily because the habits are very strong. And when a salt crystal crystallizes, for example, or when a chick embryo grows up into a chicken, there are very strong habits, which is why they do it more or less the same time, the same way over and over again. In human social fields, stable societies are ones with strong habits. Now, of course, there's the downside of this is that habits make things happen the same over and over again, and habits can be bad as well as good. If we want to bring about social change, then habits might get in the way. Or at least we have to learn to work with them so that we can incorporate old habits into a new, larger frame of reference.
Great. And why aren't we working more in fields? What's behind that, do you think?
Well, we are working in fields. I mean, every family is a field, every social group, every nation, every classroom in a school, every football team has a social field, and so do flocks of birds like starlings, which all turn more or less at the same time, and schools of fish, termite colonies, ant nests. I mean, all of these are expressions of organizational fields of societies. Our whole bodies are shaped by fields, our social groups are shaped by fields, our habits, our corporations, our businesses. So we are working within fields, but we may not be aware of it. And I think where it's important is that we've grown up in a highly individualistic society where people think to change the world you've got to change yourself, which is true. You have to bring about change, but you can have an institution where lots of people individually change, but the habits of that institution will go on unchanged
mm,
unless one addresses the level of the
mm,
institution,
mm,
its forms, its structures, its myths, its habits, its history, its goals. So we have to become aware of the habitual fields that shape our social and political life.
Great. And what would your hopes be, so say in 15 years' time in the future? How would you hope fields shape social change? What would that look like in 20 years' time, say?
Well, I mean, they're shaping social change anyway. Right now, we're leaving the control of the fields of thought and even of education to advertising agencies, inventors of video games, um, transnational corporations. I mean, these are the people who are shaping the future. I mean, children are, their minds are being, long before they get to school, they're now hypnotized by computer screens and games which are designed by psychologists to be maximally attractive to young children. So there's a vast uncontrolled experiment going on, which is bringing them into fields of thought, fields of perception, which have not been approved by ethics committees or rationally designed. They're simply the product of free market forces. And the habits of consumerism are spreading through the world faster than anything else at the moment. So I think fields and habits and patterns of behavior are spreading anyway and are changing the world. The hope is to find ways of doing it more consciously, becoming aware of what's going on. And I think if we're going to create healthier human societal fields and also fields which recognize how our societies are embedded in the natural world, in the ecology, and in the whole of Gaia, then we have to be aware of these connections and these fields. And any social group has to have a sense of identity, a kind of founding myth, um, rituals which enable people to be part of that group. That's why all religions and all cohesive groups have a kind of ritual structure. I mean, like the Jewish feast of the Passover, Christian Holy Communion, American Thanksgiving dinner. These are all social rituals which people partake in and become members of the social group and are linked to all those who've been part of it before and all of those who'll come after. If we try and design changes entirely in a kind of secular, rationalistic, atomistic, mechanistic model, I don't think it's going to work very well because it's these fields of habit shaped by myth and ritual which are actually the things that give coherence. And whatever we do, I think, has to include the rest of the natural world, not just the human community. And that means we need to have, I think, tap into the aspects of which all religions have within them, of a sense of connection with nature and our dependence on the larger reality of which we're part. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but we need to include, I think, these perceptions within a larger framework and way of thinking.
Fantastic. And on that note, I wanted to thank you for your time and inviting us into having this conversation this afternoon in your home. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. And thank you for joining us in this conversation on why fields matter.